Bullshit, it's complete bullshit. Holy shit. What the holy fucking hell? What the hell were they thinking with this movie? Okay. With that anger outburst now out of the way, it's time for me to talk about the most infamous Nickelodeon movie ever and one of the most hated films of all time, The Last Airbender. The Last Airbender is an action-adventure fantasy film written, co-produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It is the first and only live-action film adaptation of the beloved Nickelodeon animated series Avatar, The Last Airbender, and is based directly on the show's first season. As a co-production between Nickelodeon Movies, Blinding Edge Pictures, and the Kennedy/Marshall Company, the film was released in U.S. theaters by Paramount Pictures in July 2010. The name Avatar was dropped from the title so it wouldn't be confused for James Cameron's 2009 film Avatar. Upon The Last Airbender's release, it grossed a total of $319.7 million worldwide against its $150 million budget. The film was heavily panned by critics, audiences, and fans of the animated show and is widely labeled as one of the worst movies ever made. It was panned for its screenplay, casting and performances, direction, action sequences, lack of faithfulness to the source material, plot holes, poor characterizations, and use of 3D. The Last Airbender won 5 Razzie Awards, Worst Picture, Worst Director. For M. Night Shyamalan, Worst Screenplay, Worst Supporting Actor for Jackson Rathbone, and Worst Eye-Gouging Misuse of 3D. It was originally going to be the first installment in a live-action film trilogy with each adapting the 3 seasons of the show, but due to this film's low box office performance and universal backlash, the trilogy was scrapped. However, a live-action remake series of the show was released on Netflix earlier this year, to a more mixed reception. The Last Airbender retells the first season of the Nickelodeon animated TV show beginning with the setting of 100 years passing since the Fire Nation declaring war on the 3 nations, air, water, and earth, in their attempt to rule the world. In the Southern Water Tribe, Sokka, Jackson Rathbone, and his younger sister Katara, Nicola Peltz, discover an iceberg and break into it. A 12-year-old boy named Aang, Noah Ringer, who is the Avatar and Last Airbender living, and his flying bison Appa are released from the iceberg, and then the Prince of the Fire Nation, Zuko, Dev Patel, arrives to the Water Tribe to take the Avatar hostage. Aang escapes and learns he must master all 4 elements of air, water, earth, and fire to bring balance back to the world. So, Aang, Katara, and Sokka all go on a journey to stop the Fire Nation from taking over the Water Tribes and the Earth Kingdom. Where do I even begin with this one? For starters, I'll say that I didn't grow up with the Avatar, The Last Airbender show, but to my own curiosity of what it was like as well as to the recommendation of one of my friends on here, I watched it a few months ago and adored the hell out of it, to the point where I said it might be my #1 favorite piece of media ever. I reviewed it earlier on here, so if you haven't seen my review for the show, I'll provide the link for it below if you want to read it. Anyways, the other reason I watched the series is because I had this Nickelodeon movies ranking added to my planned list, meaning I had to also watch this god-awful abomination of a live-action adaptation by M. Night Shyamalan, who's widely known to be hit or miss with his films. I wanted to get the full context of the series so I could understand the movie better for comparison. I went into this movie with the lowest expectations, because even though I have never seen this film until now, I have heard nothing but terrible things about it for the past 14 fucking years. All of my friends who watched the show saw it and said it was horrible, and over the years, I've seen it on many worst films of the 2010s/ of all time lists online. I already knew way ahead of time that this was going to be a shoo-in for the worst Nickelodeon movie on my ranking, unless the Loud House movies and the Sandy Cheeks movie are somehow as bad or worse. I don't know. So, is it as terrible as everyone else is saying? Is that even a question? Of course, it is. This is one of the most insulting adaptations in any media franchise I've ever witnessed, and I couldn't be happier that now I can finally rip it a new one. It deserves it so much. The story of this live-action adaptation retells the entire first season of the show, but it does so in such a poorly directed and poorly written way. This is the first of M. Night Shyamalan's movies that I've seen, and man, did he not make a good first impression on me. I don't know why they hired him on as a director, but he was so not the right pick for an adaptation of Avatar, TLA. Now, I'm sure there was some executive meddling involved with the final product, but a part of me believes some of the bad decisions for this film were for sure M. Night's doing. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that, lol. The darker and edgier tone he gives this movie just deprives it of any joy or levity that the show had, which made it so beloved, on top of tackling mature themes. As a result, this movie is incredibly boring to watch. The script for this movie is horrendous, with the dialogue being a bunch of lines of terrible exposition, and some important parts of the first season of the show being completely glossed over in favor of it being told by Katara's perpetual lifeless narration. There's things like Aang's fear of being responsible for being the Avatar to save the world, Aang's slowly growing romance with Katara, and Zuko's relationship with his uncle Iroh that are hardly present in this movie. Not to mention this movie trying to cram so much shit into a 103-minute runtime that nothing feels truly emotionally investing at all, like in the show. Sokka's romance with Princess Yu is rushed, and so is the latter's sacrifice to save the Northern Water Tribe. And on top of all that, several characters' names aren't even fucking pronounced correctly. The acting is atrocious all the way around. I don't want to fault the actors and say they don't have talent, so a lot of issues can be contributed to the awful script and butchered characterizations. There's also some questionable casting choices that resulted in the main three being whitewashed for some unexplained reason. Noah Ringer does not do well as Aang, with his performance at best being awkward and at worst flat and lifeless. He also is written to not have an ounce of personality that he had in the show. Aang was cheerful and childlike, but knew when to be serious. Here, he's always serious and brooding, coming across as a bland character. The same practically goes for Nicola Peltz as Katara and especially Jackson Rathbone as Sokka. Peltz seems to have the same facial expression throughout the whole movie, and her line deliveries lack personality. It doesn't help that she's the narrator. Jackson Peltz is awfully bland as Sokka, who is just straight up not the same snarky character as he was in the animated show. Here, he's so lifeless and overly serious that there's no humor to be found with him or anybody else, and it seemed like the makers had no idea what to do with his character. Look how they massacred my boy. Dev Patel is probably the only actor that seems to bother to go beyond a bland and ultra-serious performance, and instead decides to ham it up as Zuko. However, that doesn't work either. I'm glad he still managed to get a career following this, but Patel just did not sell me on him as Zuko. His uncle Iroh, Sean Tube, is barely a character in this movie and gets demoted to who is practically an extra. Why do they do Uncle Iroh dirty like that? Plus, Tube just doesn't hit me nearly as much as Mako and Greg Baldwin did as Iroh. None of the other performances were good at all, either. Cliff Curtis, Sechel Gabriel, and even Randall Duck Kim with his brief appearance aren't memorable or engaging in their characters. The closest I ever got to enjoying a performance in this movie is Asif Mandvi as Commander Zhao, because it is a little unintentionally funny how Mr. Aziz from Spider-Man 2 of all people is playing the role of a Fire Nation commander. He still wasn't good and even he managed to be fairly bland, but at least the casting choice was interesting enough. The action sequences are so underwhelming here. The visuals for the bending are shown with of all of these poorly choreographed dance moves the characters do just to start bending their element. As a result, the intensity of the bending and action sequences are just not felt through this poorly thought out directorial style. I was bored watching all of the scenes where Aang was airbending as well. as Katara waterbending and the Fire Nation Sotter's airbending. The epic final battle in the Northern Water Tribe didn't entertain me, either, which is sad considering that was an important set piece in the series. The production of this movie is very below par, too. I mean, I won't say the costumes or production design are terrible, but there's nothing I found visually pleasing in this film. The cinematography is so bland and colorless, the editing is very choppy, and the visual effects almost always look like shit. The effects for the waterbending and firebending were poorly rendered and did not look convincing at all, with no one appearing to get wet or burnt at least one time in this movie. I also noticed how this film was poorly converted to 3D, which is not how 3D is supposed to be used, which made the shitty visual effects sticking out even more like a sore thumb. I'm telling you all, I was so close to giving this movie a full 0 out of 10, which takes a lot of awful for a movie to have in order to earn that rating from me. But with that said, there is one thing that I didn't find that bad. I actually kinda liked the music score by James Newton Howard. He's one of several favorite film composers of mine, and he doesn't do bad here, either. The score isn't even like that good, but it was decent enough and was the only thing I found bearable in this whole movie. It wasn't good enough to elevate the film to a 2 out of 10, but it's at least something. Apart from that and finding Mr. Aziz's presence a little amusing for the wrong reasons, I fucking loathe everything about this movie. Overall, The Last Airbender is an atrocity of a live-action adaptation of the beloved animated series, with it getting so much wrong with the source material from the rushed storyline to the underwhelming visuals to the butchered characterizations to the awful direction/writing/acting. I finally understand why so many fans of the show say there is no Last Airbender movie in Ba Sing Se. It's best we ignore this abomination's existence and just keep watching and loving the animated show. This is the worst Nickelodeon movie I've seen so far, and will likely stay that way, and the worst M. Night Shyamalan movie, as well as being the worst live-action cartoon adaptation and one of the worst movies I've seen in my life. Fuck this movie. I'm giving the movie 1 out of 10. Let us know that if. Comment below to like or dislike, subscribe, hit button notification. Thanks for watching, see you later, bye. Fuck him.